is really appalling. But I would acknowledge President Trump failed, along with Republicans. They failed in 2018 to actually move a border security bill to tighten this so that we weren't dealing with this crisis right now. We all felt that border was a complete disaster, myself included. First, it was an effort to make law, which requires you to deal with Democrats. And then a number of our members thought it wasn't good enough. And then our nominee for president didn't seem to want us to do anything at all. It's your colleagues in your party, sir, who torpedoed this, who didn't get the facts right on what you just outlined was in that measure. They killed it. Ironically, not Democrats. Right.
From the Trump campaign. You should not expect anything new if Vice President Kamala Harris is elected, especially when it comes to the high-priced economy, which millions of Americans are suffering under. But we know it's always the economy. I'm Harris Faulkner. You are in the Faulkner Focus. It's an economic warning coming from the governor of North Dakota, Jeff Dorgan. He is campaigning for former President Donald Trump.
The way we beat inflation to get the economy going is elect President Trump. Kamala's economic policies, I mean, it's just more of the same. A little bit of, if people think she's going to fix the economy, that's like, asking an arsonist to come and put out the fire because she lit the inflation fire.
On Capitol Hill, Republicans on a joint economic committee recently put out a state-by-state analysis of prices that we're all paying. And they compared right now to the time when President Biden and Vice President Harris took office in January 21. So from then to now, you can see it for yourself. Voters in battleground states in particular are paying nearly $1,000 more per month on exactly the same products and services 3.5 years ago. It's another Biden-Harris crisis.
We're trying to maintain the prices and have consumer confidence, but we're getting to the point right now where my husband says, this can't continue. Things are just way too high.
We're all tired of not having any money in our pocket. She's disconnected from regular folks like myself and all the rest of us. I have no faith in what she has to offer.
We cannot afford another 4 years of a Democrat in office. And it's just very simple. No, we can't afford Kamala to be in office. This Democratic diet that we were all just put on the last 3 years is not sustainable.
Well, that's a catchphrase, Democratic diet, when it comes to your wallet. Well, it actually was the first question that kicked off Tuesday's debate. Moderators asked Vice President Kamala Harris, quote, when it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off now than they were 3.5 years ago? Well, she didn't answer the question. And Byron York's New Column argues it was the most important question of the campaign. He said she loved it. So she tried to answer it and failed, adding it was also the most predictable question and topic of the entire debate. Before a split second, she seemed surprised. Senior national correspondent Rich Edson is live at the White House bridge.
Good morning, Harris. The White House debate is back here. Inflation discussion at the White House going on in briefings, other forums here. The White House argues that the United States is, in fact, turning a corner.
We can't forget what this administration inherited. An economy that was defensive. That's what we inherited. It was paralyzed because the former president did nothing.
Republicans argue this administration should have just done nothing, that the nearly $2 trillion American Rescue Plan in 2021 boosted inflation. Prices in the United States are about 20% higher than in 2021. GOP members on the Joint Economic Committee say inflation in consumer prices in key swing states are largely more than the national average, except Pennsylvania. Other Republicans are also highlighting how much more Americans are paying than they were just a few years ago.
This administration, we have faced record inflation. As one of my friends has said, the most expensive vehicle Americans drive today is their grocery cart.
Wow. Democrats blame inflation on pandemic disruptions and global conflicts. They say their $2 trillion spending plan helps avoid a recession. They acknowledge prices are higher in the U.S., but they also point to rising incomes. Paychecks have generally outpaced inflation for the past year and a half. Democrats in the Joint Economic Committee say wages and salaries from January 21 to July of this year outpaced inflation by nearly $4,500. The latest read we have on inflation comes for August. Prices in August were 2.5% higher than they were from August a year ago. That, of course, is on top of all the inflation that we saw throughout the last few years.
Yeah, and you know what? That is such the important part that you point out, Rich. It doesn't mean that prices go down when the inflation rate comes down a bit or fluctuates and goes back up. Prices are always rising and at one point above 9% under the current administration. So they're already high plus 2.5%. I'm glad you said that. Thank you. The left-leaning Washington Post editorial board also weighed in on that question posed to VP Kamala Harris. Are Americans better off than they were 4 years ago when Donald Trump was in office? They say she dodged it.
Hey, so, I know you've been there already, but Pooh just called and said I can come through and get a tour of Dre's studio as a thank you for what we did for him. Lamar crazy ass heard, so you know that fool gonna be there too. But it's gonna be cool. We'll do it whenever it's good for you. Man, I'm excited for this. Look, bring a friend if you like. This one gonna hit different, alright? Peace, homie.
Even than they were in 2020. The left has made a talking point of turning the corner on inflation, but bare essentials, and I mean bare, like who lives without food? Shelter, auto insurance, energy costs, all up by more than 20% since Biden and Harris took office. Sean Duffy, former Wisconsin congressman and co-host of The Bottom Line on Fox Business. So let's talk business. Let's talk the economy. It was just a misfire by Kamala Harris over and over and over when she would even address the issue of the economy. What is she going to hand us?
Well, the problem with that question, Harris, was she didn't answer, but also every single American knew the answer to that question. They all knew, of course, we're not better off right now than we were 3.5 years ago. We're worse off. And then for the administration to come out and say, but listen, we're turning the corner. These are the same people that told us that Bidenomics is working for the last 3.5 years. These are the same people that said the border is secure. And you make a great point. Inflation, it's important to understand this, it adds on top of previous inflation. So, again, we're up 20% over the last 3.5 years, and wages have not increased by 20%, which is why Americans feel poor. And in politics, Harris, you have to talk about the issues that people care about. And you might not have great answers, but you have to have some answer to address their concerns that they're poor today. I lived this life at one point. I had 5 kids. If a $200 unexpected bill came in, I was stressed out of my mind. I fought with my wife. It is a stressful time. And then you got inflation on top of it. People, even left-leaning Democrats right now, are like, listen, I want to vote Democrat, but my finances are so bad today. And this administration has been so horrible, I can't vote for them. I want to go back. Even though I Donald Trump, I might not like the speech, I might not like the language, but I love the economy. And I can't live anymore under this economy. I'm a Marine, idiot.
Look, Vice President Kamala Harris made another false claim about former President Trump at both of her rallies last night in North Carolina. Here's a clip.
Donald Trump will give billionaires and big corporations massive tax cuts and cut corporate taxes by over $1 trillion, even as they pull in record profits. People have more than $5 trillion in massive debt. He intends to cut Social Security and Medicare.
Okay, well, we'll just read directly from the Republican Party's official 2024 platform after what she said. A promise to, quote, fight for and protect Social Security and Medicare with no cuts. Is anybody on her campaign reading? I mean, everybody's looked at her platform. even when it didn't have any policy on it like 96 hours ago. And now it's got very, very lean talking points on there. So people really don't know what she would do. Here's another one. President Trump has made absolutely clear that he will not cut one penny from Medicare or Social Security from the platform. You can see one is in Chapter 6, Protect Seniors, Our Commitment. This is from the Republican platform for the entire United States. Watch.
We're going to take care of Social Security. We're not going to do anything to hurt our seniors. There was so much cutting to help seniors on fixed incomes who are suffering the ravages of inflation. There will be no tax on Social Security. We're going to stop it. No tax on Social Security. I will fight for you and fight for the ability. We are going to protect Social Security. We are going to protect Medicare. And we're not going to have any cuts. We're not going to have age increases.
I mean, it's perfectly clear on that issue. And I don't know if the left, through Kamala Harris, is trying to have its own version of the truth. But there's one truth. They can have their feelings about it. But what she's saying is not what Donald Trump has said.
Yes, you have video and you have documents, and Kamala Harris continues to repeat the lie. I wonder where's the media, Harris? Going, we're going to fact check her on this because that's not what Donald Trump said.
But we're not left leaning. We're covering the news.
We're fair, right? But here's the problem. $35 trillion in debt. Social Security, Medicare, they're going broke. The trust funds are going to run dry. And so you're going to have to tap into the general fund to help pay and meet those promises. $35 trillion in debt and $2 trillion budget deficits means you're not going to have the money to take care of seniors. So the real threat to every single American who's going to rely on Social Security and Medicare are coming from the big spending Democrats who are blowing the budget up. One quick comment, you played the slide on taxes. Again, it's a great line to say, if you cut...
Why haven't we heard from you?
Democrats to spend, you American people, your lives will be worse off because we're not taxing billionaires. The truth is, for the tax cuts that we passed when I was in Congress in 2018, we brought more money into the federal coffers. We made more money because there was more economic activity. Lower taxes, less regulation, give you more growth, and then more revenue, and more people can fend for themselves and not rely on government. That's the problem with the liberal philosophy. It's flawed. And by the way, with all the money they spend, Harris, no one's life is better. We should have gold-plated roads for all the money we've spent on infrastructure. And we don't have roads and bridges. We still need more money for infrastructure because they lie to us.
Yeah, I asked that question about the infrastructure bill. Where are the receipts on that? All the time. Living between one of the most traveled thoroughfares in the world, the George Washington Bridge, and another one, the Lincoln Tunnel. And we have water main break after water main. I won't even get into it. The people who suffer when that happens. All right, Sean Duffy, thank you. Fox News alert. Pop star Justin Timberlake is set to appear at any moment in a Long Island, New York courtroom. And he's expected to solidify a plea deal to downgrade his June misdemeanor drunken driving charge. He was pulled over in the Hamptons, Sag Harbor, beautiful town there. And police say Timberlake ran a stop sign, veered out of his lane, and got out of his BMW reeking of alcohol. He refused to submit a breathalyzer test at the time, and the deal comes after Timberlake pleaded not guilty during a virtual hearing last month. Details of the deal have yet to be publicly disclosed. Timberlake will make a statement after the court appearance, we are told. We'll take you there live when it happens. Well, the fallout continues over the one-sided fact-checking at this week's presidential debate. Now, a new report shows a moderator admitting what everybody might have suspected. Plus, former president is set to hold another news conference in less than an hour. Trump is at it again, time after time. Meanwhile, Vice President Kamala Harris still has not held one news conference since she announced that she would take over Joe Biden's spot at the top of the ticket. Many people say it's not okay.
She's going to hide from the press. She will not allow herself to be cornered. And that's very damning. Because if that's how she's going to run as president, what would she do as president? She would.
Now, Sag Harbor, New York is in the Hamptons on Long Island, and he is just arriving at the courtroom there, expected to solidify a plea deal to downgrade the the misdemeanor that he caught to drunken driving charge back in June. So we've been waiting for this to happen. Let's listen in for a second to see if anybody's shouting any questions at us. In the courthouse, and you can see there's quite a crowd out front in the Sag Harbor, beautiful in the Hamptons today. Police said Justin Timberlake ran a stop sign, veered out of his lane, and got out of his BMW smelling of alcohol. And then he refused to take a breathalyzer test at the time. So there are a lot of details in all of this. Here's the one detail that we don't know. We don't know what's in that plea agreement. The deal comes after he pleaded not guilty during a virtual hearing last month. So we're waiting for the details to be made public. Maybe that will happen today. We are told that he is going to speak to the reporters that you saw, to the wider public when he comes out of that courtroom. We'll take you there live if and when that happens, but you've just seen him live walking into the courtroom. We're covering it on both ends. All right, both presidential candidates are back on the campaign trail today, and former President Trump has a busy day in California first. He's about to hold another news conference, and he's holding a rally later, just a few hours later in Nevada. Vice President Harris is in a battleground state today, Pennsylvania. Meanwhile, fallout continues over what score of people are calling what scores of people, I should say, are calling a biased debate Tuesday night. The Los Angeles Times is reporting on how ABC's moderators, as you see pictured there, prepare to go after Trump during the debate. ABC's Lindsay Davis told the paper she and co-moderator David Muir prepped hard to fact-check Trump after the first debate, where she says, quote, people were concerned that statements were allowed to just hang and not be disputed by the candidate Biden. Well, did they prepare for Kamala Harris? Or just by complicity did they assume that maybe she'd only say what was true and only answer their questions? Fact-checking needs to be done on both sides. Twitter fuels criticism over the news contest about Hugh Hewitt. Or the Hewitt piece calls it the worst debate in the history of presidential debates. Former Clinton pollster Mark Penn argues, and who on this program too earlier this week, ABC's bias deprived voters of a fair debate. They called Trump out on every falsehood, but let Harris get away with one lie for another. A Democrat votes for Clintons, and with this on the vote protection.
When the refs put their finger on the scale, you've got to throw out the score of the game. What would have happened in that debate had they challenged Harris? And said, that's not right, what you said there about throwing stuff. We don't know how she would have reacted, and then Trump wouldn't have to spend all his time on the debate side. I think they really did a real disservice to the voters of America when they did that, and they put in jeopardy the institution today.
Well, that's fine. But Livingston, supporting the President Donald Trump, has vowed he will not debate again. Understandably, in this case, despite Kamala Harris's team calling for another matchup almost immediately after Tuesday night. Trump told the New York Post he doesn't think there was any reason for it, no need for it. Howard panel, Cassie Smedley, former RNC Deputy Communications Director Brad Howard is here as well, the former Straight Group President. Brad, I'm going to come to you first. This would be the third debate, and it's not Trump or anybody else's fault on the way for the fact that you guys changed your ticket. So third debates would be a lot. He's done two. What do you say?
Well, I think any time that the candidates are put together on the same stage to answer questions about their positions on the issues is generally a good thing. I thought we had a right to the presidential debate commission. The radicals we shift to a broadcast network like ABC.
That's good.
Yeah, like they social broadcast network, they set the whole journalistic integrity standard that they're trying to hold it. So because they're on the broadcast airwaves, they feel the need to fact check a little more than I think, something like the debate. You look at David Muir, he asked a really good question about her evolution on the issues when it comes to both God and finding. I thought that was
the debate. What is the talk about flip-flopping? After the former president
The reality is that Trump is just known for telling the people
Smith all around convenience IVF. That was so easily knowable, you could have fact-checked it just in your memory. You didn't even need Google. All right, I'm gonna go to Cassie. Cassie.
But I think what we saw here, Harris, is that there's again another example of Democrats and their allies in the media who don't think Kamala Harris can do it on her own. They have to press, they have to come to her defense, they have to be her defensive lineman because they were afraid that she would step in it herself if they didn't protect her and defend her. That's what we saw. They didn't fact check her because then the bloom would fall off the rose that she doesn't have clear positions or she has flip-flopped on the positions. She doesn't have clear answers. They allowed her to sidestep on, and right off the gate on that first question where it was asked about what's happening in our country right now, the economy, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? She sidestepped and they never went back to her. They never said, wait a minute, you didn't answer that question in the way that they did towards President Trump. That right there, right off the gate, was a disservice to the American people. Because that is why so many people were tuning in, to get the answers to the questions that she has sidestepped, to get the answers to the questions that she refuses to sit down and have a solo one-on-one interview and discuss, or even a press conference. So it was, again, a disservice to the American people, and ABC was the leader in that disservice by trying to protect and defend her because they don't think she can do it on her own.
All right, we heard moments ago from Mark Penn. We're going to go again because he goes even further when it comes to how ABC News handled the debate.
I actually think they should do a full internal investigation by an outside law firm. I don't know how much of this was planned in advance. I don't know what they told the Harris campaign. I think a review of all their internal texts and emails, it really should be done by an independent party to find out to what extent they were planning on in effect, fact-checking just one candidate and in effect rigging the outcome of this debate.
Mark Penn is a regular guest on the show, one of the many Democrats that we have daily here. And I have to tell you, I think I know him well enough to know what he's doing. And it's also even and fair to Kamala Harris to want that type of transparency. Because otherwise it makes it look like she does need the help. Why couldn't she get it done on her own? So, I too get the point of why he would be doing this. But Brad, I'm just curious at this point, how in the world can America look at this and think that this is a fair procedure and still also not know much about her policy because she chose to go after Trump rather than going after everything else that would help everyone else in the audience?
I'll say a couple things. What Cassie said earlier, it's just a ridiculous assertion that somehow Democrats are in cahoots with the media. When you look at
with the ridiculous assertion that only broadcasters can do debates, which people can too. We're all journalists, and at news conferences we stand together.
When Joe Biden was nominated and had a bad debate performance, the media left and heavily criticized him to the point where he is now no longer the nominee. So it's just a ridiculous assertion. And number two is that this is Donald Trump's own fault. Kamala Harris baited him. He took the bait and it sent him into an incoherent sideshow.
Fact checks his fault, A, and not fact checking her.
Because
it's his fault that she didn't get fact checked.
She baited him into making these outlandish
She didn't keep them from doing their jobs.
She baited him into making these outlandish claims. And let me make my third point here, which is that.
You didn't answer my question. How in the world is it going to be his fault that they didn't do the job of fact checking?
Because she poked him giving an emotional response where he made these outlandish claims, and so they had
to tell the truth about something like that.
Check these outrageous claims. And let me say this: the only time Donald Trump seems to attack the moderators is when he loses the debate. And by all accounts, he lost that debate and immediately started attacking the news directors and ABC News. They did that. This is what Donald Trump does when he fails.
Now you're ignoring the questions, and you know
Yep.
there were problems with some of what she said.
Yep.
And it needed a good fact check.
And he didn't want that truth.
And there's plenty of times that have done that.
Both of you, I'm going to say thank you, and Cassie and Brian, I'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. Vice President Kamala Harris backed the full decriminalization of illegal narcotics during the 2020 campaign. So during that time running for president, she was all for that. Let that hang in the air for a moment. Portland, Oregon just tried doing what she favors. It was a disaster. Where is Kamala Harris on the issue now? Great question. Plus, Vladimir Putin of Russia threatens war against the U.S. and NATO over Ukraine using Western weapons.
got his hands full here. You know, he's got the Ukrainian military inside his territory, and he's making some progress with his major counteroffensive, but it's not making the kind of exploitation progress. So there are real issues for him on his side as well.
All this as the UK's Prime Minister is visiting the White House today to talk about drills in nearly 30 years. We saw this earlier this week. And Russia's defense ministry is now saying the drills involve 90,000 troops, 400 warships, submarines, and other vessels, 120 fighter planes and helicopters. Now, while that was happening, the United States has been meeting with the European Union in Brussels to talk about China's support for Russia and security in the Indo-Pacific. And today, President Biden will host at the White House UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer. The two of them are set to talk about the war in Ukraine and Russia's President Vladimir Putin warning a possible wider war with the U.S. and NATO. Well, they better hit that topic. Fox News senior strategic analyst General Jack Keane with this.
Putin's got his hands full here. You know, he's got the Ukrainian military inside his territory, and he's making some progress with his major counteroffensive, but it's not making the kind of exploitation progress he wanted to take significant amount of territory back. So there are real issues for him on his side as well.
Jackie Heinrich at the White House. Jackie.
Well, Harris, there have been some signs the Biden administration might move forward with this policy change. You had Secretary of State Antony Blinken making a wartime trip to Ukraine, and he said yesterday that he would bring back to Washington what he saw there. And he added that the U.S. has always adapted when the battlefield has changed. That's the line that we've seen in the past when they have made policy reversals on things like HIMARS and Patriots and fighter jets.
I'm not going to get into hypotheticals. I'm not going to get into internal policy deliberations from here. I will say what you've heard from my NSC colleagues at this podium, heard from this president. This war can end today. If Mr. Putin will end the war that he started.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer is expected to ask the president's approval today to allow Ukraine to use British Storm Shadow missiles for expanded strikes in Russia. Biden needs to sign off because some components are made in the U.S., but the administration is not ready to preview anything just yet, even asked to respond to Putin's accusation that if the U.S. allowed this, it would be drawing America into conflict with Russia.
Russia firing ballistic missiles from Iran, which will further empower their aggression in Ukraine. So, if anyone is taking escalatory action, it would appear to be Mr. Putin and Russia.
Ukraine is pursuing this policy change with renewed importance after the Biden administration said this week that ballistic missiles to use against Ukraine to open them up to a whole new wave of destruction far beyond the front lines, Harris.
Wow, that last detail about Iran and Russia, that's a lot. Jackie, thank you. Brent Sadler, a former Pentagon official, joins me now. Look, Brent, let's just start there. Iran and Russia and ballistic missiles.
No, absolutely. I think we saw this actually play out when Iran attacked Israel directly in April, and then you had the assassination of Haniyeh, the leader of Hamas, in Tehran, and you had Shoigu, former defense minister, fly days later to deliver a message to Iran like, don't jeopardize our arms supply to our fight in Ukraine. This is drones as well as ballistic missiles. So I think we've seen it in real time. It is a real dynamic in the war that's playing out in Ukraine. Russia relies on its allies like North Korea and Iran.
Well, look, we always call it saber rattling, which I don't even know if anybody's fighting the saber too long, but I know it's a thing. I'm saying, how seriously, though, do we take the saber rattling from Russia when they say they want to go to war with us and NATO?
The view on this is that this administration has misread and misjudged Putin's calculations from day one, and gave too much, I guess, credibility that Russia was ready and willing to attack a NATO country. I think calling that bluff should have been done years ago. I think Ukraine should have been allowed to use the weapons that we gave them as they saw to most effect on the battlefield. And the result by the hand-wringing and the holding back and the hyper-management from Washington, D.C. about how that war is fought, it basically brought us into a war of attrition, which is what the Russians excel at. And finally now is very late into the game. but I don't think necessarily it has to be an escalatory move. Russia has quite a lot. General Keane was saying they have a lot on their hands. The last thing they do is to add